Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Jonathan, and I'm joined by Martin and Rafael today. And we will be talking about our project, which started as a hackathon project actually, which is one-click OpenVMS on x86, which is basically an automated install of everything OpenVMS, all the products you need and everything. So the agenda for this presentation is to first introduce a little bit about what we have done and what is the intention of it, the reasons for why we wanted to do this, and what the aim is for the whole product essentially. What does it actually do in terms of the technical stuff and what we have achieved and what we plan to achieve. What you as a user have to do to be able to use this application, and also the future plans for what's next with this and how we aim to improve on it and expand upon the functionalities on it. We'll also go through some of the technologies that we use for it, the challenges we have faced, and some acknowledgement as we received some help with some much needed stuff for this. And of course, some self-promotion and hopefully some feedback from you guys on the Q&A.
Just on the time side of things, we tried to do the presentation a little bit fast, so in around half an hour. And one of the ways we're going to do this is that we're going to start the demo midway through so that you guys can see then the demo also at the end. So we're not going to show the full demo because the demo is basically the automatic installation. And the idea we have with that is so in the end we have more than 10 minutes, hopefully like 15 minutes. So we can have like a little bit of a ping pong back and forth because we're here to present what we have done. But from our perspective, we're really here. We're really here to hear what you guys think of the tool. How can it be used? What should be improved? What new features? Is it something that you would really want? Is it something you would be potentially even willing to pay for? Is it something that you feel like, okay, this saves me 1 hour, I'll use it once a year? Or does it actually save you like 30 hours per month, right? So we're here really to get a sort of feedback on how to use. And also if you have any ideas on the technology, can you add these extra things on? So we can talk about that. Yes, please come in. We just started. I think maybe the other one. Maybe we leave the back door open. I think we can try like that.
Yeah, so just like Rafael just said, a small disclaimer, this is not a hack and not a product per se, and it was created at our hackathon. It is only for x86 VMS systems, and we only installed the latest version, the latest VMS version, the latest products versions, and it is in very early stages, so we appreciate every feedback and all the feedback you have for us with this.
It's not a product. We started as a hackathon project, and in the end we thought like, oh, this is an interesting idea. And by chance, we did have one customer calling us 1 week later where we thought like, wait a minute, maybe this is exactly what you need. And then we started discussion, and then now we have basically discussions ongoing with the first on the field release for this particular customer. Just so you guys understand where we are.
Yeah, so bit of an introduction about this entire project, which you kind of got. What exactly is this tool for? It is basically a completely unattended install of VMS that you can just do immediately, pretty much in 1 click. You can automatically install the apps that the user chooses. So you just go onto some kind of front end, you click the buttons, what products you need, and you will automatically have it installed inside your VMS system. It also automatically applies licenses for you, so you don't need to worry about that either. And we really do everything that you need to get your OpenVMS system up and running. All of this currently happens in the cloud. It takes like 10 to 15 minutes to get everything set up all together. And, sometimes the regular OpenVMS installs can take quite some time. This time, it's quite easy. We made it quite easy for you to do in just a minute. Basically, you just pick what you need, click on the big download button, and your product is ready. You have an OpenVMS install.
Main reason why we try to compare with the 5-hour limit is because OpenVMS itself doesn't take 5 hours. Oh, everyone knows that. But what takes 5 hours is if you start a clock, a watch, and then count from the time of like, let me log into the service portal. Okay, what is the list of 15 packages that I need to download? Search package 1, download. search package 2, download, search package 3, download. So this process, and then you have all those 10 zip files now on Windows download folder. All right, now I need to go install VMS. Then I need to send all the packages in. Then I need to go install one by one. So when we talk about 5 hours, it's not really just the OS installation. It's the full blown from the time you decide to start your downloads all the way to now I have a prompt, I have pre-crashed the system, everything is fine, so on and so forth. So that is generally the comparison we're trying to do here is the 3 to 5 hour mark for the full process, right? So not just the OS. So.
Also, additionally, we have multiple types of output files. So for KVM, you could use QCal, but also with ESXi, you would want to use VMDKs as well. So this is also what we do. You can use it not just in KVM, but also ESXi. Yeah, that's better. And also, we implemented caching as well for this, so we don't overload our own services as well. Because basically, when you create your own custom install with the custom products installed, then we cache that into one. And when we see that it has already been created for you, then we don't need to actually regenerate the entire install. And we can just get you the one that is already installed and created for you.
Just a side note here, our service portal for x86, if you download everything latest version, so latest ISO, base OS, latest patch kit, latest update to the ISO, latest all the about 80 kits we have available, it consumes about 12 or 13 gigabytes, just so we have an idea of the size. And if you imagine that some people decide to try our service and go like, oh, let me just click everything and see what happens. And when you have multiple people doing that, all of a sudden you have multiple gigabytes being consumed out of our original, not the herder server, not what we're talking about, but actually the service portal server. So what we try to do is our herder, instead of going and fetching each package each time that someone requests, what we have instead is a cron job. We're going to talk more details about that later. That tries to go to the server and checks once an hour if there is anything new. If there is, we cache locally, exactly so we do not overload the service portal server. Just because Tatiana is a really nice person and she's very friendly and everything, but if you overload the service portal, she's not going to be happy with you. So we try to make some ways not to overload our back-end services, which are responsive. And those are actually customer facing. So that's also another reason why we really don't want to overload those.
So all in all, we could summarize this entire project as 9 for a 40-year-old operating system. Now, what is the motivation behind doing this? Basically, we're removing the barrier of entry to x86, as you know, everything just happens automatically pretty much. We are removing the barrier of entry for newcomers, which you know is also quite a big debate and discussion here. A lot of people are retiring, a lot of new people are coming in who might not know that much about VMS, but you still need VMS. So this is also a great opportunity for you. And it's super simple. Basically, anyone with a computer can do it. Almost. My grandma couldn't, but most people could. And also, in the end, the goal is really just to have a single-click OpenVMS install for you. You just do this command, the super legit download. You get the Shark Vernon right to your computer installed, and then you have OpenVMS up and running in just one command. That's our end goal. Now, what does it do actually? A bunch of stuff. It does a lot of things, both in our backend and both for you as a customer. The ones that have tick marks there, those are completely working features. The ones with these warning icons, those are things that we have code for, but it's not entirely working completely. But yeah, we will break all of these up and go more into detail one by one, so you can understand it more.
Yes. So from a very top level perspective, we divide this project into two very distinct. The first one is the caching that I mentioned, and basically that runs on the server only one instance at a time, and it's part of the Linux cron job. So what does it actually do? It connects to the service portal, authenticates. We have our own robot ID, so the service portal manager would be very aware and easy to pinpoint who is actually overloading it or not. So we have a robot VMS ID. It logs in, does authentication, then downloads all x86 packages and ISOs and kits and you name it. We currently download everything that is available for x86, which in the service portal generally means the latest version. If there are 2 versions available within the service portal, because it could be that a given customer still requires an older version, we are also going to make that available. So when we said that we only operate on x86 and only the latest version, it's half true, because what we do is, if you've seen the service portal, we can provide to you. It's as simple as that. And the reason is because we don't want to be the ones deciding what is available or not. That should be part of service portal team to decide what is available. So what we do is basically replicate that. And this sync is done once an hour, because we thought, okay, about once an hour is okay enough. The amount of data transfer is a few megabytes if there is absolutely no new package. So basically authentication, download all the list of packages, then going through the list. And what we also do during this cron job every hour is if a given package has already been downloaded locally, we have checksums for those, and we compare with the registered checksum in the service portal. So there will be absolutely no point in have a local caching of the service portal if the image that you have cached is corrupt. And we make sure to check that. It's a little bit of a tip for every one of you that currently already use the service portal. Always rely on that checksum field. So when you download the kit, when you download the ISO, it's very good idea to double check what you have downloaded is perfectly fine. So MD5 checksum, then we cache all the downloaded files, basically just survived in our computer. Like I said, 13, 14 gigabytes is relatively easy nowadays. And particularly interesting, we actually go and we figure out the dependencies, and we do that recursively. So a good example is Web UI. Web UI has 2 dependencies, and the service portal right now lists only one. So it lists Lua, and the dependency that is not listed is Pivot. And how do we actually do that? For every package that we want to cache, we get the metadata information of the dependencies. Then for every dependency that has been listed, we keep doing that recursively, so that we check, for instance, if Lua itself has a dependency. And of course, the script is not yet smart enough to realize this given package is actually a ISO, or this given package is actually an update. No, any package, it just goes, give me the dependency field. Is there anything more? Continue, continue, continue. And our script is smart enough that basically you have unlimited nested. But funny enough, we haven't seen a single nested dependency so far. And we believe this is not really because there are none. We actually believe that it's just that it has not been yet registered on the service portal. So another tip for you guys, that as you use service portal and you look at the dependency field, if it is listed there, trust it. But if it is not listed, it doesn't mean that there is none. So have that at the back of your head. And just a small insight here, like I said, we found no nested dependencies. And if we remove the dependencies which are, let's say, obvious, what is the dependence of this package? ISO 923 install. Okay, that's pretty obvious, right? So if we are talking about the latest installation for x86, we can assume it's 923, so we don't need to worry about that because the system will be 923. If we remove the ISOs, if we remove the patch kits and we remove the ISO update, so a good example is 923 update 1. So if we remove this base OS related obvious stuff, there are only 5 packages that actually currently have listed dependencies, which are actually real dependencies. And this is something we are now working with the service portal team to get that up to date, so that automated tools like the one we have made and the native package manager can make better use of the dependencies field for automatic installation.
Question.
Yeah, go.
Does this job run at the target machine?
Everything we're talking about, maybe we do like this. Everything we're talking about right now is a Linux host in OCI that creates guests, VMS guests.
Okay.
When we talk about the VMS itself, we're going to make very explicit that this is the VMS installation of the VMS guest. So the caching is done in the host, in the Linux host. It's an Oracle Linux OCI.
Which is owned by you.
Which is owned by us. It's an Oracle Linux. We have spin it up. I think there is a slide that we talk a little bit about the machine, so we'll get it to that. But yeah, do stop if you have any question. All right, so it's very easy to come here and just talk. But you know, maybe we do a small demo. Let's see how this will go. All right, so this is actually the server that we have in Oracle right now, OCI. And the unofficial name of the project is Herder, and the reason is because we deal with all the Q count. So, yeah, nerd dad joke. And I'll just show you for now one example file. So we just created this regular user random selection file where someone came in and listed some names of packages. And the service, the script is smart enough that we add wildcards at the beginning and end. So basically, if there is only one COBOL version in service portal, and you have not specified the version, it's smart enough to take basically the one that is available. So any package that you do not know exactly all the version, do not know exactly all the name, consider that if you add just the main part of the name, there will be wildcards to the left, wildcards to the right. It is smart enough to figure all that. So this is an example. We have COBOL, Pascal, WebUI, Summer, Crow, and ZeroMQ. We just randomly selected. It's just so you have an idea of how it runs. And so what it's doing right now is basically going to the service portal and double checking for those packages that we have if the name matches what we have in the cache, and running a lot of these different things. So all of this, you can see here very quickly the address of the service portal. And in particular, it also, sometimes you can see the address of the server that we actually store some of the packages that are then served by the service portal. The reason that we did like this is because before the presentation, we went to the cache and we deleted a few packages just to prove that actually, let's say if the cache doesn't have the package and the user requested, we always go and check because we do not assume that the user doesn't know the name. We assume that we might have not cached it. And where are we now? Right, so here, virt install, we have just basically started the creation of the guest machine. We have spawned it. Oh, that doesn't look good.
Of course.
I think we are stuck. Let me just double check. We have I think we might have run out of
space.
space.
Check the other screen, maybe.
Ah, good point. I think maybe we need to delete a few here. So this server, as you can see, it's quite a lot of VMS. So all of these are virtual machines running the VMS. Let's just try. I have to do one by one. Okay. I'll try maybe to just execute one more time. Let's see. Let's see. We tried this morning. It went just perfectly fine. Just try one more time. Okay, we'll continue with the presentation, then we get back to here. Since we have time in the end, we can also go back. Which one?
What does it do? Quick VMS install. View.
Right. So hopefully we'll be able to show the demo there. Basically, what does it actually do? So it automatically installs OpenVMS as a KVM guest. And the idea is just so we can actually generate the QCal. And install all packages selected inside the VM. So as you saw that config file, all those 5-6 packages that we just randomly selected, we pack them into an ISO. And that ISO we make available as a virtual CD-ROM into the guest VM. Why do we do like that? It's because we do not want to force enabling of SSH because we could have just very easily copied via SCP into the guest system, but we understand that some customers might have some requirement, which is relatively rare, that they do not want SSH at all. So we do not want to enable or install something just to have it disabled or uninstalled at the very end of the installation. So the way that we found around this was to basically use virtual ISOs as a means to push files into the running instance. It generates the VMDK files. This is actually one of our very last steps. So once we are perfectly done with the QCal. We have flushed the file system. We shut down the machine. We can then convert the QCal file into a VMDK, and then we save both versions. The one reason why we have to do this is, as Martin mentioned, is because of ESXi, and because, as we understand, I don't remember if it was Azure or AWS, that they are much happier with the VMDK files rather than the QCal. And Oracle can, OCI can do both. So for us, the QCal would have been more than enough. And right, so we pack, store, compress, everything. One interesting feature that we have here is that we actually run the guests as thin provision and not thick provision. So everyone in the crowd here might be like, oh, you shouldn't do that. VSI itself says that you should not do that. And we ourselves told that basically last December, and we keep telling that, and you should not do that. But it's a little bit like using Go2 on your programming, that if you know what you're doing, you know, it might be actually a good idea. And the reason why we use thin provisioning here is because these images, they are being created for download, and then later on, the user is the one responsible for restoring. And the conversion of thin provisioning to thick is something very easy, very quick to be done. The other way around, when you already have thick provisioning to convert to thin, so you would reduce the download size, there is a much, much more complicated process. Because even if you have, let's say, a hard disk of 40 gigabytes, but you're using only 5, your file system will be laid out in such a way that the Linux system, all the Linux tools responsible for the disk, do not recognize the ODS file system as having such a huge free space, so that they could just compress it very quickly. And that becomes a particular problem if you have a high watermark and everything. So the idea is, from the beginning, we start with a small hard disk and thin provisioning, so that when we zip everything together, it's a very, very small download file that you need to make. And by very small, I mean like less than 4 gigabytes, something like, I believe we were in the 2 to 3 gigabyte range with this type of example packages here. And then, of course, when you install, when you deploy, either for production or for testing, we do recommend to do the conversion from thin to thick. And it's a one-liner, very quick to do in your host. And the machine we use in Oracle, so that was one of the questions. So we have started an instance for the project in the hackathon. It has 128 cores, 256 gigabytes of RAM, and I think about 500 gig of hard disk. And the idea that we had was so we could do up to around 60 sort of ballpark figure of concurrent installations. And this was one of the hard aspects of the project, not so much to set up the machine to handle concurrent installations, but actually to set up our scripts in a way that concurrent installations would be possible. So because as you generally write a script, it would be like, okay, just copy the file here, just copy the file there, install this program, install this, install that. So you generally do not necessarily think about what will happen if there are 2 instances of this script. Now you cannot just copy the file to the same folder. All right, so we need to create unique names to the machines, unique IDs. And what about the tools that we are running? Like, do we have any tools that actually do not support concurrent running, and they are somehow single-threaded or single-minded for a single instance? So all of this was actually one extra addition of the problem that we had to solve. And the reason is because we do not want to limit only one user logging on to the service portal and being able to do the click and match and generate the QCal. We would rather have multiple users, up to, in our case, 60. And we thought 60 was an okay number, at least we got to. Yeah. Let me just see how the demo is, just in case. No. Did I restart it? I did, right?
Yeah.
Push again. It's the gods of the demo. Yeah, we touched quite a little about this already. We ignore the OS updates, patchkit and base OS, because we are assuming that we are always going to deliver the latest. So that makes it a lot easier to handle dependencies. There are no real multi-level dependencies. We haven't been able to identify. We think there are out there, but it's just not currently reported in the service portal. And it's pretty bad at mentioning the dependencies in general, regardless if it is multi-level or single level. So we've seen only 5 or 6. And yeah, only 5 or 6. How about the licenses? So this is one of the points on the original list that we have not fully finished implementing. why is that? Because we are currently able to download the license, we are currently able to install the licenses, but because we are running with a robot script, robot login, we have enabled for that robot to see basically different customer licenses. And this is one problem right now, that we do not want to generate image for customer A with the license of customer B. That would be just terrible. But we haven't had the time to implement anything in that regard, so that the robot would be smart enough that somehow it filters out all the licenses that are not related to the given customer that has run the request for the build. But given the license, what we do is very similar to the kit. We actually package in a separate ISO, and we also push that license to the guest as a separate ISO. Once the ISO is there, we have a DCI script that mounts the ISO, copies the license, and runs the license.
But of course, why would you really care about licenses? What you care about is what you need to do as a user to get this done. It's very simple. It's only a couple of steps. You have to log into the service portal. You have to select the products that you want installed, the different versions as well. In the future, right now it's just the latest. Click on the submit button. After that, just wait for the email with your download link. Should take 10 to 15 minutes. You just download that, extract your zip, and run one script on your Linux host. Yes, that's this one. So with this one, we're basically giving you a zip inside a zip. That inside zip, that's your entire install. That's what you need to have. The install script, that's what you run on your host, and it just defines the entire virtual machine for you and loads it up for you. So this is basically a single click, non-sudo, vget deployable script. And only step 6 is left, which is enjoying your new OpenVMS virtual machine.
So the reason why we did with the, oh, sorry, go for it.
And changing your system password, because of course this is an automated install, so we have to set some kind of a system password. And yeah, don't forget that we're about security, right?
The reason why we did with a script that has another zip and a script, a zip that has a script and another zip inside, is because we wanted at first to target everyone that is running nested virtualization. What do we mean by this? Someone who has a computer that is actually running a Linux host, for instance, in our case, Oracle Linux, and that person wants then to create VMS instance. For this case, in that host, they are going to able to basically run the single line and everything gets deployed because it's made for that. But if you are, on the other hand, not running nested, you're running direct virtualization. It's something we are actually going to talk about in one of the days of this conference. We achieved the non-nested after we started this project, and it's one of the next steps we want to add here. So what do we mean by if you are running non-nested? If all you need is the QCal, then it's something you would have to do manually right now. You have to extract the QCal out of the zip. So basically you have to unzip twice and just take the QCal and then just put the QCal directly non-nested as you wish. So we do support both, but we provide an automated, very quick way, single line, only if you're running virtualized nested. But it is also our intention later on to potentially provide just the QCal for everyone that is running direct non-nested.
Any question there?
Yeah.
In any environment where we have VMware clusters or Cloud Stack or OpenStack or whatever, the QCal or the DK file is of course what's interesting. I mean, we can't run that kind of script now. Have you considered using like a cloud init or host name, IP address, passwords, and stuff, so we can use it, for example, in Cloud Stack or to set up machines? We can have that automated.
So currently, the scope of the project was basically to generate the automated install. But that being said, it's one of the things that we are looking at right now. It was part correlated to the question Daria got about the software as a service. And this has evolved quite a lot in the last 2 weeks because we had quite a number of customers specifically requesting this. Can we have an automated installation, a single click on a given cloud provider, let's say OCI, where I may even pay as I go, where I pay for the infrastructure plus the license and pay as I go. And for them, the only way that would be beneficial would be if they have an automated installation that they click a certain button, log in somewhere, and that automatically spins the image with the installation already done. And for us to be able to achieve that, it goes back to your question that the output of this, either being VMDK or QCOW, must be somehow uploaded to the cloud, then made available. For instance, in OCI, this is called bucket. So we have to copy the QCOW or VMDK into a bucket. Then from that bucket, we need to create an image. And an image is basically a file plus some attributes. And the attributes are not attributes for the file, but attributes for the VM. What that generally means is you tell OCI that, for instance, iSCSI is not yet supported, or that you would rather have a VirtIO SCSI rather than a VirtIO SATA. They use a little bit different terminology, but that's basically what I mean. You're telling Oracle's own KVM how a given QCOW file should be instantiated.
Yeah, we usually do that with like cloud.
Right. So that step, it's something we have in the pipeline. Once this script is done, you have the QCOW. What we did not even write that point on the to-do list, but it's something we have in mind that upload the QCOW or VMDK to the bucket, create then an image. Basically, you tell that given VMDK from that bucket requires this and it doesn't support that. Then create an instance based on that image. So this part of the step, we know as a fact we can automate on the OCI command line interface, but we have not started at all.
Because I see for a production environment, it doesn't matter if we say 5 hours, but for an automated testing or automated development system, QA system to just tear it down, put it up, that's when those 5 hours matter. And
that was exactly our customer case. Our customer case is, why can't I have something like Kubernetes that I just spin it and I will destroy it 3 hours later?
Yeah.
Right. So if I'm going to destroy 3 hours later, it's great that you guys are doing the installation and you install for me, but I want not only the install, I want the whole deal. That it's, and for the customer contactors, they were even saying like that if I'm waiting 15 minutes or half an hour, it doesn't matter. What really matters for me is that I do not have to attend for those 15 minutes or half an hour.
Yeah, what matters is that the Jenkins system can say throw up this and put this software on it, and we do our automated test, and then we tear it down. If everything is green, then it's fine. Otherwise, it's...
Yes. So we do have that customer, and the other client, under quotes, is our QA team. Because for our QA team, it's actually particularly interesting that they can have a system where no one has really put any manual input other than the selection of the kits. So we remove the human in the loop, sort of like randomness. So they have some assurance that when they spin this machine and then they will spin the next day and the input file with the kit selection is the same, there is a much greater chance that the output will be the same, the result will be the same, and so on and so forth. So it's for development and QA.
We download this QCOW file. We do that maybe once a month or whatever. We don't need to have those new versions because that's going to replicate what's on the production systems. And that's not going to change day to day.
Right.
However, the code that's running on it needs to be tested for all the commits they done during that day. So
what I hear from you also is that potentially it's interesting not only to have this integrated to such a system that automatically spin instances, but potentially even have a system that is spin instances where you can provide your own QCOW.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So if we have one of these QCOWs, the packages we pre-selected, that's fine. We don't need to generate new ones. However, we need it to support for something like Cloud Init or whatever framework.
Right.
That can be changed.
No, it makes sense.
Any framework that takes parameter input and sets that as a host name and gives it an IP address to make sure that it's the correct network.
Right.
Or even custom DCL where you've got a tick box for selections, but then also there's a requirement to set up an environment to look a certain way. So then not only do you have like product selections, but way of configuring, like, I don't know, like in this example, maybe Git, you want Git on the VMS system, and so you need to set up Git to connect into the environment so that you can build it so that when it builds, it's already got Git on there and it can pull a repository down and test it, and then you've got sort of complete end-to-end.
Yeah, Cloud Init has excellent functions for, run script after it's done.
This is one of the features we are missing also is like custom customer things after the install, right? So we would be able to install Git, but we would not yet be able to say connect to this repository, right? So
Cloud Init, and that's open. It seems like a good fit, and that would bring this to a scenario where it's
Kind
actually
of-
very, very useful.
Kind of got that working, but it's really crude. It's not like
Yeah.
it's just passing it up a serial file.
Yeah.
It's not very smart.
But
But
then we can have it automated, for
Yeah.
example, set up a OpenStack or CloudStack
Yeah.
or
Mhm.
VMware
Yeah.
or whatever, and
Yeah.
we can put that.
But this is great. This is also why we're here, because we want to hear use cases, right? So for instance, one thing I did not know before this is that it would be interesting to not have the full integration all the way, select packages and you have an instance. But as you mentioned, it would be potentially interesting to have a customer able to just upload its own QCal file, and that from then we do the automation, right? So it's exactly why we're here. So we want to hear your use cases and new features, etc. Yeah.
Now, as for what is next, these are a couple of ideas that we had, but that's nice that you're giving more ideas to us, because that's exactly what we're here for. So exactly, customizable default settings, as we touched upon. That's
You
what we
talk
want
about
in the
host
future.
name, so yeah.
We are, of course, it's customizable settings for the virtual machine itself, and also customizable settings for the operating system that you're setting up. So, system, password, your networking, all that kind of stuff. And also for each kit, there are a bunch of scripts that require their own configuration, and they all work a bit differently. That's something that I wouldn't say struggling with, but we're still trying to figure out how to do it properly.
What do we mean by this, particularly the case that for the base OS, we can have one default config and we are sort of happy, right? So later on, we can change most of those things once the installation is done. But when it comes to the kit, some kits have default yes, some kits have default no, some kits have you enter a number. So we cannot just have one installation file for the kit and say this is the default, right? So what we are trying to sift through now is which kits could share a given installation file and which must have a fully dedicated, exclusive, independent file only for that kit. And as we have 80 something kits, it's a little bit of manual work, not in the sense that we are programming a generic system, but manual work that we have to take the kit, install manually, sort of record all the prompts, think about what would be the meaningful way to have a default. Then when we're done, think, are any of those defaults, are we not capable of changing after the install, right? Because that would be a major problem, because if there is such a thing, then if we pre-install for the customer with the default and he's not happy with a single choice, then you've just voided the whole install. So it's one of the manual sieving through the pile that we're still missing on how to do. We install kits right now with defaults if they comply to how many specs we have. I think we have like 4 or 5 examples of these kits that we actually go through that we have manually sieved through.
Yeah, and well, as this is a hackathon project and we don't really have a dedicated team for this gets to be a bit tedious and time consuming as well. Another thing, integration with the service portal. We would like to have a nice front end, where you click all the buttons and then get everything generated for you. We're not front end engineers. We don't do UI. We don't know how to do that. We will need to do that in the future as well. Also, caching of pre-made images, tree caching.
Yeah, so the idea here we have is there will be a few selections which will be super common. So one thing we thought about is pre-caching just the base OS alone. That would already save us about 12 minutes on the generation time. What we would be doing then is every time there is a new release from the service portal of the base OS, we would on our own, not waiting for a customer to request, we would install and we would sort of store that QCal somewhere, tag it, etc., etc. And the next time a customer comes in and selects, oh, I want the base OS with I don't know, web UI. Okay, so instead of starting from scratch, we would then take that QCal which has been cached, boot it, install web UI, unmount, nicely shut down, and archive now the next one, and slowly build a tree where the top one is just a base OS, next one, next layer is base OS plus some of the most common application, and slowly build this tree. The idea is not so much that we would not overload the server. Yes, we would reduce the load on the servers because we're not doing everything from scratch anymore. But the idea is particularly so we reduce the waiting time for the customer to be able to get the QCal. And we haven't done anything like that. So it's all stuff that we thought about, but had no time.
You store all these pre-made images on the server itself?
Yeah, we would store on our own server just because it's pretty cheap.
I was going to say if you have problems with scaling with that server, would you create a storage bucket and then tree those into folders within the bucket and then have that server call buckets? Is that, I don't know if that's something
that is exactly it. And you have even a further complication. So for instance, how do we keep the information of exactly not only which package is in a given pre-generated QCOW, but also the version that was used?
Yeah.
Right. And we want to have in such a way that we do not have to boot the image to figure that out.
Yeah.
We want to have in a way that some file somewhere stores that information, maybe even the file name.
Sure.
But then you have 80 something kits.
Yeah.
So that's at least 80 something. If maybe becomes some hex way of
like DBA as a server, like database as a server.
Yeah, we could actually have a database that
Yeah.
links for a given QCOW, and then we would also have to link probably the MD5 sum of the QCOW
Yeah.
just as a check. And then,
Yeah.
so yeah, we haven't implemented any of that, but it would be pretty cool. So that instead of taking 12 to 15 minutes minimum,
Yeah.
we would then take the seconds that it takes for each kit.
Yeah.
Another idea is preemptive generation. So we would kind of figure out what would be the most common things, and then a customer doesn't manually need to first request that image, but we already generate that what we think would be useful and use the most.
Yeah, particularly when we have a release related to the base OS, being a brand new base OS, in our case now 9.2.4, or when we had last week or 2 weeks ago the 9.2.3 update 1. So if we have something related to base OS, great. Let's just preemptively regenerate at least 2 or 3 levels of these 3 at midnight when the server is not really full, right? So this type of things we haven't implemented at all, but it's part of it.
But that's on the service portal where this is decided by the customer and us. Then can't we just have that based on account and basically a subscription? Like this is the packages that we want on our QCAP or our file, and that is generated when there's new versions.
Mhm.
And then you can cross-reference between the customer. That script should be pretty easy to see who has the same needs. And
Right. Your basically your idea is saying like we do not necessarily need to have a cache tree, but we have specific customer indicated exact combinations for some nodes of the tree.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's the base to us, and we want that every time there's a new version.
That's a lot easier to implement. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's a lower hanging fruit instead of caching the whole tree. Yeah, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Also, yeah, this one we don't have either. Simply converting to VMDK, that's not really ready for you to use it outside of KVM. So we would need to generate a full ESXi appliance. And that is also in the pipelines as well.
We have the equivalent for KVM. So when we talk about the zip file that you download, etc., we provide the QCOW and we provide an example of an XML that configures your VM on KVM. So the script that you run, the wget script, will basically unzip that, will basically spin your VM as per our recommended configuration for the VM. We try, of course, to start with just 2 cores, 4 GB of RAM, so the bare minimum, and then you can later on go and manually edit and improve, which is sort of the closest you would get on KVM to an appliance that we give you a file and everything is there. You do not have to figure out that the chipset is Q35 and the VirtIO net is better than the E1000. No, you don't need to figure out any of that. So we have that for KVM, but we want to do the very equivalent of ESXi, which would be an appliance. So you drag and drop ESXi, and the basic settings are there, and you can always go and drag the bar to use more cores, use more RAM. So we want to make it easier for you guys, not only to get to the QCOW, but also to deploy it, right? So you start with something that is a known good config for your virtualized hardware.
Also, optimizing server usage. I think that's self-explanatory. Yeah, also, well, currently it is quite hackathon-y the way the project is done. So we would also need to de-hackathonize it quite a lot. So yeah, bit of a technology explanations, but I think we're running a bit long.
But I think it's good because we have already had some questions on the way, so I think it's fine that we have less time.
Yeah, yeah.
So I have a question.
Yep.
This gentleman in front of me here, yeah, when you were saying, almost you saying that you thinking more of what you're authorized or what you're licensed for, and from there, because right, I mean, I'm just trying to understand the bigger picture, right? So Are you saying like by using this, customers could theoretically pull down, if they made a shopping list, they may be outside of their licensed shopping list? So were you saying that you just want to be able to go and pull down based on your customer ID or what the products are you have, or do you want to experiment with other products? Because this would go into
Maybe before you answer, I'll just mention an internal thing. So when we were selling this for the internal presentation, one of the points we had is that as you come and go and you click and you select a product that you do not have license for, we wanted to have an automatic email for the sales department. So basically the idea is like, okay, you selected web UI, you have that and SSH and blah, but all of a sudden you selected a product that you actually do not really pay for. But okay, we can generate the image and we potentially would look into giving you a license of, I don't know, 30 days or something like that. But at the same time, our script would be like, they are interested in this. By the way, dear sales representative from BSI, do you know that the customer selected this? So it was one of our selling points.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Invoices,
Right,
right?
that makes sense.
Yeah, okay, not automatic invoice. I don't think people would appreciate that. It's like you click the wrong button, here's $100.
It's like you go in the thing, it's like I got a shopping cart, I'm just gonna, I can get this, I get that, and then you get to go to the checkout, they go, no. Yeah, right. But in the end, we want you to, if there's things you want to experiment with in your development box, why wouldn't we want to give you a
We
temporary?
always want to give you the temporary license for the experimentation.
Because I
That's
didn't
guaranteed.
see this as a tool for production environments in reality. I mean, yes, if it's nice and smooth and it gives you a file for a production environment, that's perfectly fine. But I see it, the biggest part of this is in the development.
This would
side.
be huge in development,
Yeah.
especially even locally.
It's
even
been
for
up
us,
and in the QA and all those kind of scenario. That's where it's big. So for me, I don't even care if licenses. I mean, the temporary test licenses is perfectly fine because from my point of view, it's only intended to spin up something for the developers to test if the code works in a repeatable manner.
Yeah.
And not in the way of, we spin up a system and we fix this and we fix that, and then they run them and there's old software on it. I want, as soon as the developers has tested their new code, I want it gone.
Right, and when you say developer, I mean, each customer is different, but we had first the idea of like, this is useful if you're developing an app or you are porting an app. But then we realized there is also utility on this of the porting to x86 as a whole, right? So maybe you might have
a scenario right now,
right,
where we want to see, okay, we have rewritten all this part of our system. And if we have a QA system that's static and we fix things on it, when they write new code, the old crap is still there. So we don't really know if the fixes they've done are actually working. They might only be working because we fixed something earlier.
Right.
But if we tear down the entire environment, have an automatic spin up a machine and put on the new, then we will know if it's going to work.
Yeah, it's the classic, but it works on my computer.
Exactly.
Right,
We want to get rid of that. That's the big part. So
makes sense.
for the licensing part, I don't really care.
Right, no, but you wouldn't care, but the machine would care because it needs to be licensed somehow.
Somehow, yeah, at least temporary.
For what you want. So that would be the only thing, but the time saving to me is not having to sit around and build the darn machine every time you want.
Especially in a QA environment.
Yeah.
We want to get it or whatever. So spin this.
And in most cases too, the customer environments are licensed differently. The production environments are usually just the runtime licenses. They're not necessarily, the dev are the ones that usually have the C license, C++,
Right.
all that sort of stuff. So the dev machines are usually licensed a lot deeper
Right.
than the production.
We'll move on because we're actually about time. So if you're free to just stand up but we'll continue here and go through a little bit quicker.
Yeah, you probably had the time to read this one.
And I thought we would be done in half an hour. See, look at that.
And then, quickly then why we are using OCI to do this. And essentially it is because the server is burstable and we technically only pay for a fraction of the course that we are actually using. That as a result of that, it's very cheap to run and capable of taking very heavy loads when needed if we're going to do several installs at once. And we can use a lot of resources. The costs approximately for 1 week is about $150, which is very favorable in comparison to other cloud providers. So this is the concept we want when you offer front and here when you pick the kits that you want and the products. So essentially just think of this as Pascal, Cobalt, SSH, everything. So you just click whichever you want for your VMS system, and the generated file will have everything that you make here.
This is from 9.9. Just
Yep.
for your use.
Yeah, well, these are some things that we had to figure out, and we're still figuring it out. Debugging TCL or the expect scripts that we're using for automating this entire thing, that was kind of a challenge. Also creating the DCL scripts in Linux, that was a lot of fun because the line endings are different in VMS and in Linux. So we also had to figure that one out. Nested dependencies and filtering all of that out. Yeah, as we mentioned, the service portal is not the best at mentioning dependencies right now. So this was an extra bit of a challenge that we had to do. Yeah, also we bumped into a bunch of ISO file name and size limitations and so on.
It's basically we have a 32 character limitation on the ISO first part of the file name, and a lot of the packages are bigger than that. And you cannot just chunk it because usually the version is the very last end. And generally you want to actually keep the version number, but you don't want to keep the VMS x86 because it's VMS x86 in the beginning, right? So we had a few scripts to try to keep the meaningful information still there in the file.
Yeah, well, to kind of wrap the things up, oh, I really wrapped that one up.
Come talk to us after the presentation so we can
Yes,
continue right now.
Yes, pretty much. We would love to hear from you, everything, feedback, ideas, all of that stuff. Thank you for all the comments. That was great already. But yeah, find us later on and let us know everything that you would like to know. These are the statistics for this hackathon project. You can probably get the slides after. Yeah, we would like to give some special thanks to these people. We're giving out the slides,
Yeah,
right?
Brett, Igu, and Rodion, they basically helped us a lot with some of the development in VMS, but then also the service portal. And the original idea was Brett's.
And of course, we want to include Kobe here as well, which was part of our hackathon team.
Yeah.
The demo, let's see, let's try again. The idea would be to watch until the cows come home, but let's see.
It has to be host space. It doesn't create it.
Do you think I could actually just
Do this page just to double check?
Should I just stop or delete some of them? Or I just go like this? I don't know if maybe we ran our CPU or something.
We're out of time for sure.
Maybe any comments or questions while I try to figure out?
I wrote down a list because I was thinking as I'm going because this is way better than what I was doing. Have you considered doing a complete SaaS, like front to back? So instead of providing someone a QCAD, you just give them credentials and an IP address and as a SaaS solution, and say instead of giving them the file and saying you actually do it for them and generate this. That'd be less for like constant development and actually like a proper sandbox. I'm thinking like when you do Azure training, they give you an Azure VM, for example.
I think that's very close to what the customer who contacted us wants. So their final goal is, I want my developers to be able to log in somewhere. My credit card is already registered.
Okay.
They click a button to spin an instance.
Yep.
They get the SSH key.
Yep.
They log in, and there is a very clear button that says pause, and that is going to cost me less.
Yep.
And there is a very clear button which is delete this forever.
Yep.
And what we got from the customer was basically the idea that I don't want to have to deal with contacting salespeople to arrange license for that machine. I want to pay as I go. And the pay as I go would be the full instance plus the licensing cost.
I'm kind of thinking of something like on the VMS website where someone who's never touched VMS at all can click a button, they can try VMS. That spins up in your OCI environment, and they get, I don't know, an hour, whatever, to itself afterwards. I don't know if you guys.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good idea. We haven't thought about that, but that would be an interesting way. Like we provide maybe a VMS with a single core and then, I don't know, like 4 GB of RAM.
They can just muck around.
Yeah, and even base, we could look into actually providing the instance running on our herder server when the herder is not generating anything.
Yeah.
So it's one of those that if we are generating a lot of QCows and there has been an update and we are rebuilding the tree, sorry, we're busy.
Or even just like a individual auth instance cost you guys cents. And then it builds itself.
Yeah, it's a pretty good idea. I think especially to use the what's called the leftover time from the server.
Yep.
Since we're paying for it anyway.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really.
Let me start. I wasn't involved in any recent work. I just, I'm a PSI and I'm a product person. We were investigating if we could run OpenVMS on any cloud at all over a year ago.
Yeah.
And we picked Oracle because they are, like, we work with them already.
Yeah.
They are cheaper than, like, the big guys. But
Yeah.
Oracle.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not, like, in a cloud business.
We
So
have slots.
when we investigate,
delete a bunch of
the
pages,
idea
also
was
should be
also
space.
maybe provide, for example, like,
Deleted what?
yes.
A bunch of VMs. There should be space now if you go to the tab.
It is.
So-
I'll delete all
Okay,
six.
so if we want to run customer machines, we could run customer machines per program.
Yeah.
Python install, software install, but also to have something that run for IC license or something. like
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So.
There we go, right on time.
I think we might get back to that idea because I believe we could provide OpenVMS in any possible.
I think with that you can essentially provide VMS for Alvin, like this like in a sandbox environment. They don't need any configuration. They can learn about VMS. It's got no sort of so that it could be used for development per se, but just like education almost, because that's the lowest barrier for entry for people to learn about VMS, so they could click a button and they go, here is an instance, have a go.
Yeah, we want to demonstrate a small thing, a web UI test instance. It's like, we have some test machine running somewhere and web UI shows that it's running, you can poke around.
Yeah, for education it's particularly interesting because everyone will screw up something in the beginning, right? And then I cannot access my system, or the classic SSH now it doesn't allow because you've tried too many login attempts, and the students are like, just spin another one.
Yeah.
Right. So that will be particularly interesting.
That's pretty much the use case I've got for my thing, which is that exactly that.
Yeah.
Sorry, another question.
Yeah,
What you're doing is, are you echoing data to serial file to pass?
So this is Verge console. No, it's
Expect script and it goes into the Verge console through the expect.
So it's passing data to Verge console?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So we can quit by Control-5, but then Control-5 doesn't work very well with expect.
Okay.
So we actually have to go and find the machine name.
Yeah.
And then kill the Verge console based on the machine name to get out of it. And the machine name in the end, we ended up with the 32-bit epoch.
Okay.
That was the way we.
Yeah.
And you can see that
That's
it's working.
Yeah. Probably works better than what I was doing, which is just echoing data in a serial file. And if you want to kill it, you have to kill, because you have to open the file first. So you cat the cat file, pass data to it, and if you want to kill it, you got to kill the process that's catting it. Yeah, it's not.
And this is all unprivileged. That's the other thing that we put a lot of emphasis on. That we, if later on we are taking customer config files and things like that, the things that we do not generate ourselves, we wanted to have everything unprivileged. Yeah. Any more questions? We'll leave it running. It's a cool Netflix show here. So. Yeah, and do come to us. So we are from professional services, and basically, if I had to put in one sentence, what we do is like we do all sort of custom installations and custom setups and custom maintenance and anything that is like, I have this particular use case and it's not related to really programming an app, but I want to deploy in this way or this backup. Come talk to us. We are here to help you guys out and discuss idea and It takes 12-15 minutes to get to the very end of the solid kit. So but I'll keep running. I'll give it a
Great job.
Thank you.